child by one examination, as we are doing. But we want to recognize that the reason why the child came to school was because there are certain milestones that have been put in place that the child should achieve. And so at every level then, what we want to assess is, has that child achieved the milestones? And if the child has not achieved the milestones, what is the best way to ensure that they are able to achieve those milestones so that they move to the next level? And that is where we are saying that in the context in which we are, the important thing is what the child can do in terms of exhibiting their practical ability away from what we examine them to have done. And therefore we are saying the percentage is what is your score. Instead we are saying your progress in terms of your achievement is the important part. And that is a major shift in education, because by and large, the easier option is the exam and the score. The more difficult option is walking along with the child and ensuring that this child has achieved that trend that we want them to achieve. And so setting certain bars. When we find the cluster of levels that we have put, we have the early years education, we have the middle school, and we have the senior school. At each of those levels, there are certain milestones we expect. And that gives the child either the 5 years in the first level, or the 3 years at the primary level, or 3 years at the junior secondary, or the 3 years at the senior secondary. With each of these, if you are able to trace what the child has or has been able to do, then you can quantify that we have actually added value to a child who comes to school, because that's the reason why they come to school. Allow me then to say, based on that, and what we have just discussed in terms of how do we bridge the gap of what we have not achieved. Yeah. One of the gaps that we have as a country is our value system. And we're not saying that the knowledge-based curriculum under the 844 system is not value-based. It is. But we are laying emphasis because we think we are going in a very wrong direction, where we seem to think that when mistakes are made, then it is okay. Once we do that, we lose out on everything. So in terms of what this team and what we are discussing today about character, you wouldn't have character if you don't have a value system. And that is why one of the pillars of the CBC is actually the values. So that without a doubt, every time we are speaking to the children, we are saying Kenya has a value system. Let us not just quote the Constitution, but let us pick out what is this value system then we have. And so we have 8 values that we have embedded. We are not saying that they are the only ones, but they embody the larger or wider several values that we may have. And if we are able to achieve those two, one, centralizing the fact that the child is the important factor in the system, what can they do? And two, ensuring that we build in them a value system that when we get back to society, we are able to enact the good that education is actually meant for.
All right. All right. Before we continue, allow me to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Charles Ochome, who's the chairman of the Kenya Private School Association. Thank you, Moses, for stepping in. So coming to you, Martin, you know, when we talk about bridging that gap, STEM is one of the things that is becoming really important, especially in our education system and especially with the market disruption. So then how do we ensure that we implement it all levels of education?
Thank you very much. It's not in anyone's doubt that teachers play a very critical role in the development of a child and the learning to take place in school. And so therefore, at Samaster, training of teachers, especially on teaching pedagogies, approaches, on innovative pedagogical approaches to teaching STEM subject is very important. The realization that science cannot be taught in abstract. It can only be taught when there are practicals involved, there are projects involved. And of course, when all this is happening, the competencies such as communication and collaborations actually come out very strongly in STEM subject. When you talk about project-based learning, where students or learners are able to see a problem within the community, and they are able to find solution to that problem through what they're learning in school, actually help in promoting STEM. And of course, we talk about teachers forming what we refer to as professional learning communities. During the COVID-19, when the COVID was a disruptor to the education system, we were able to see that teachers could leverage on the technology to be able to support each other. And as one way of teachers coming together in the professional learning communities, when they're able to come together and leverage on ICT platforms to be able to support each other in the teaching and learning of STEM-related subject, then it goes a long way in supporting these learners. And of course, allow me to say this, that sometimes we say STEM or science-based subject as hard for girl child. And so we try to promote gender-responsive pedagogies that will be able to help the girl child to be able to appreciate what STEM or what science is in relation to application in the job market. And we try to really encourage even our teachers to go out of their way and showcase women scientists who have been able to perform exemplary well. And so that is one way of really encouraging even girl child to perform very well in STEM-related subjects.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. We each have a role to play, and we media equally have a role to play. Coming to you, sir, maybe you can tell us the role that the media has to play, especially when it comes to spreading education content.
Okay, allow me to start with a quote that Mark Twain said. And he famously said that he did not allow his schooling to interfere with his education. And when you look at it from that perspective, education is not confined within what you call schools, institutions of learning. And if we were to just limit ourselves to education as what happens within the institutions of learning, then probably today here we'll be having a conversation around the periodic table and such things. Now, where media comes in is like any other stakeholder in the education system. Students are supposed to be subjected to various sources of information. Books, of course, are one of them. The teachers will always come and, give the lessons, give the notes. But today, if I have the opportunity to sit with the cabinet secretary and I'm given 5-10 minutes one-on-one, the conversation, how would that conversation go? What will I discuss? What points of common knowledge can we share? And that's where elements of general knowledge start coming in. That's where the elements of being informed beyond what the schools taught you comes in. And I believe that the role of media, we always say media is there to inform, educate, and entertain. A lot of people, I think, get stuck on entertainment. They forget the other two, which is information and education. I am a strong believer that media has an integral role to play when it comes to those first two, information and education. Today we can get to know what's happening around us without necessarily having to spend a lot of time. Why? The media organizations have done all the work, they've collected all this information, they've put it together, and within, say, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, one can get to know what's happening around them. If it's about educating, truly, if every day you wake up, you read a journal, a magazine, a newspaper, whatever it is that a media organization produces, or if you watch a program, a documentary, or if you listen to a podcast or anything, chances are you will learn a lot more in that short period than probably you would if you went back to school or if you decide to go back to a classroom. Why? All these sources of information tend to be diverse. A lot of time, they tend to be curated by experts in certain fields. And if today I want to understand, for instance, I'll give you a very practical example. I've never played cricket. I never grew up in a cricket-loving family. But when Kenya was performing very well in cricket, one day I said, okay, what's happening here? And I sat in front of a television. And by paying attention, I was able to, one, learn what the sport was all about. Two, understand how it was scored. So I learned things like boundaries and fours and leg before wicket and all those things. I never got taught that in school. But today, if I go and watch a cricket game, you'll think I used to actually be in the Kenya team. I think that's the role of media, is to provide different avenues to get informed, to get educated on very different many areas. Now that's in the unstructured format, where you choose what you want to learn. When it comes to the structured formats, you'll find that a lot of media organizations, not just in Kenya, but the world over, will tend to have featured areas where they intend to just bring certain aspects and they use their platforms to educate. If you come to the Standard Group, for instance, we have something called Newspaper in Education. Yeah. We have a platform called Farm Kenya. Now this Farm Kenya, which encompasses the Farmers TV, the aim is actually to provide information to farmers. You see, we sat down and realized that a lot of farmers struggle, not because they don't have good land, not because they're not hardworking, but most of the time because they don't have the right information. Most of the time because maybe they don't have the right skill sets to undertake a certain venture. And in the process, you find a lot of failed farming initiatives, and people say, no, farming is bad or this and that. You get a farmer who goes, does a very good crop, but does not understand, for instance, the limitation of certain chemicals that are supposed to be used. So by using such platforms, you're trying to educate the farmers on one, for instance. How do you use your land? There's this issue of too much acidity in the soils because of over-fertilization. If you've never been a farmer and you go and buy and say 10 acres in Kitale and say, now I'm going to get about 30 bags per acre, shock on you. You'll probably not even get 5. But media can provide the avenue where such a farmer can actually learn more, because unfortunately our extension services, for instance, mostly collapsed. Let me just say they collapsed. So in the absence of these extension services, which is the quickest, shortest way for a farmer to access information, I believe it's through the media platforms. So in a structured format, media can actually identify certain particular areas of our social strata, decide that this is the space we want to play in, and provide clear information which can help to educate and to inform. So I look at media as not just the people who put up political headlines, but as an organization that can partner with the formal structured educational institutions in expanding the knowledge and information of students. I think when I look at myself as a young kid and I look at myself today as a professional, to be fair to myself, what I did in school helped me pass the exams.
Okay.
But
yes,
what the world taught me has helped me stay in a job. And I'm sure even for the business people, what they learn out there probably helps them more in the business than just what they learned in school. So when you bring the two, education equips you with the ability to solve complex problems, right? But everything else equips you with the tenacity and the ability to survive in this complex world.
Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't have said it any better. Well, coming to you, sir, Charles Ochome, of course, you are the chairman of the Kenya Private School Association and an investor in education too. What is your take, especially on conducive learning environment in our schools in terms of both infrastructure and personnel?
Thank you so much. That's a very nice question to ask, because we in the private sector believe in quality, and we look into preferences, tastes of various customers that have children and are seeking education more so as a first choice. You'll agree with me that the Kenyan of middle class, what I would call the second or first generation of the educated in this country, must have passed through difficulties where probably he went to school on barefoot, or the parents were educated, so he was able to have shoes, but majority did not have. So this kind of people want to give the best to their children. And, in a public setup, the government has one standard for everybody. What about this parent that wants something different for his child? These are the people we must look into their interest. That's what I call preferences. Now, if your preference is a private school, then what kind of private school are you looking at? That makes us go a notch higher to put in quality in our systems. I want to say without contradiction, I saw today the CS launching books to go to their schools, and we are going to buy them after that. But I can assure you our books will reach schools before theirs. Why do I say this? Because our systems are online, are real time. So that increases quality, that increases availability. The public schools, you will find the books will get to the director of education or the regional director of education, who will again look for other people to distribute them. Our books, for example, by Monday, if they're in bookshops, will reach our students real time. That is enhancing quality in our schools. Now, our classrooms might not be as big as those of public because we do not have the 100 students in our classes. We do not have the 70s. But if we have 25, then we make a classroom conducive for 25 students. And therefore, that to me is quality, because the child is learning in some comfort. I know we have been, I remember many times when our children who are Kenyans, like the ones in public, meet even in sports, we have been victimized occasionally that we have probably, if you look at cases and the press is here, that there is a production, possibly drama. You'll find our quality, they will be complaining, this is overdoing it. But as we overdo it, we are doing it at the expense of the Kenyan child who is doing it, not the directors. So we look at quality and adding value to our products to be able to even meet the preferences of our clients. And as I said, the middle class are very demanding. And if there is anybody who will give the CS a lot of problems, it's the middle class people, because they are saying, where is my child going to go? And I want to assure you, Kenya is headed the right direction by first starting even to bring the junior secondary school at the primary to be domiciled there, because now the facilities we are putting up are just wow. Just visit some of these schools and you'll be surprised. The labs are ready, the IT systems are ready. And if we say that we don't help the government to provide those facilities, then everybody will be struggling for the little resources we have. And many people keep on wondering whether private education is useful in this country. And I think I want to assure you that you cannot do without it. Because if you travel even outside the country, go to Britain, go to US, in fact, if you take your child to a private school, you have helped the government, you pay half, the government pays half. So here, the government has not started paying half because we still have a lot of problems to do with that money. Our budget might not meet all these needs. So I want to assure you, many of you who are here, that when you complain that the government is not supporting you in this private education, it's not that they have refused. I'm not the advocate, but when I look at the same government, the needs overwhelm their budget, and that's why we have to borrow out. So when the government saw it right to bring the private sector in education, it was not to enrich other Kenyans, but it was to supplement the effort they were giving to the Kenyans. Because if they don't do that, then all the money goes to education. Then you find even the public schools will now possibly have it, but what about health? What about defense? What about agriculture? So the private sector education is very key. And I want to highlight that if you want the best, I know some of them are very high above the roof, but you have a choice. You can model your income according to the private school that resonates with yours. And also look at the costs, because every product must have a cost. If you look at our cost, because the question I'm asked every day by the media is, why are schools, private schools, very expensive? And I tell them they are not expensive. The products they are now giving you is what is costing that. And remember, the teachers are professionals that must also be paid well. So that increases the cost. And I think that if we bring Kenyans, good teachers in private schools and in public schools, and it increases the quality of that education. And the teachers are supervised real time in a private school.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
And of course, that's a conversation that we'll continue having, not only on the podium, but even off the podium. So allow me to give each one of you around 30 seconds to give your final remarks. Maybe I'll start with you, dear Gracious. Of course, I know Plan International is really big on quality education. In 30 seconds or so, kindly take us through the programs that you're pushing for.
Well, 30 seconds is quite a time. But basically, I think we have for decades complemented government efforts and private sector, of course, in terms of providing inclusive and equal education, especially to vulnerable communities who make significant percentage of our populations. Not only through sponsoring children from like the most vulnerable communities, but actually supporting schools within these communities to provide enabling environments through WASH, setting up water tanks, for example, through school feeding programs. But we've gone further to even contribute to building the capacity of teachers, like through one of our programs we call Beacon Teachers, where we are actually just supporting and complementing government efforts to enable teachers also contribute to safeguarding and providing a safe, school environment. Okay. And I think that has worked so far very well, and you're going further with that. I'm going to pause there.
See, you managed. 30 seconds isn't as hard. But Martin, coming to your final remarks, and even as you make your final remarks, what exactly should we focus on to ensure that those students who are majoring in STEM actually getting the best? Because it's all about quality education, right? Yeah.
Of course, there is need to ensure that our learners are able to connect what science they are learning in their classroom to what is happening, and I have said that again. And so it calls upon, especially professionals in the STEM-related disciplines, to make visits to their local schools and encourage the students who are there that for you to become, for instance, an engineer and to be able to construct a bridge, then you need that mathematics, you need that physics, and then be able to connect. If I need to connect that bridge, then therefore, what are some of the things that I need to learn, say, for instance, in mathematics? When you're talking about angles, are they relevant? Because sometimes the way our teachers present science in the classroom is rather abstract. But when they are able to connect that this is what is happening outside there, when you calculate this particular angle, it will help you in building a stronger bridge this way here. Then they'll be able to connect. And it is important that we are able to, that we encourage our teachers to go out of their way and become innovative enough to engage, because education is not a preserve for the teachers only. It calls upon every member of the community to support education for a better country, for a better future.
All right, thank you. Martha, allow me to put you on the spot. Since you are the Deputy Director of Education, the Ministry of Education, maybe a pledge of some sort in front of all these stakeholders. How exactly are you going to help ensure that our children not only get inclusive education, but equally quality education?
How we are going to ensure? We are already ensuring.
How will we make it better?
Yeah. Like now, for example, the introduction of junior secondary, because an assessment was done and we found that there was need for them to remain in the primary schools. But as junior secondary students, they are already there. And the provision of classroom at least is sorted for the grade 7, because that was going to be a challenge. It's already sorted. The government has already employed or recruited 30,000 teachers. They are all qualified, trained. The teachers who are already in the ground, on the ground in schools, secondary and primary, they are already being trained. They are being retooled. Yeah? And this is a continuous process that began a long time ago, and it's continuing throughout. Everybody knows that the cabinet secretary today was out there distributing food, materials, learning materials. That is a very important aspect of quality. So the government is doing everything, and will not stop there. Just like the Constitution stipulates that basic education is a right and compulsory, and the government should provide it progressively. We are doing exactly that, and nothing is being left. We are continuing to do that. Everybody is doing capacity building, including even the officers. Even us, we get trained all the times on this new curriculum and everything that we need to have, that we will need. And so that training is ongoing, the capacity building is always ongoing, and that is one of the most crucial aspects. And so even school feeding, by the way, because quality people in Kenya are just geared towards exams, that they want to count the number of A's, the number of what, but now that we are introducing a curriculum where we'll not be grading, quality encompasses all the education outcomes. Are all the children in school of that category, if they are supposed to be in school, are they in school? Are they transiting? So if you look at our government budget since the year 2002,
yes,
when free primary and free primary was made free in Kenya, the Ministry of Education is taking the lion's share. Mr. Ochome was already saying that giving the private will make all the budget go to education. And it's true, because if you look at our budget, one time I was able to attend the bidding briefly of the budgeting.
Yes.
And so I had other ministries and other stakeholders complaining about education because we take like 30% of the total budget. So that is enough to show you that we are keen as a government in investing in quality education, because we don't want anyone to be left behind. No child should be left behind. And that is exactly what we are doing.
Okay, Jacqueline, no child should be left behind. But even as you give us your final parting shot in 30 seconds, what other practices can the country adopt in ensuring that we achieve this quality education?
I think the best practice that we can adopt is working together. There are three key things that would ensure that our education is favorable. One is a world-class curriculum. We believe we have given Kenya a world-class curriculum. Why? Because several countries are coming to benchmark with us.
Yeah.
That means we have something to offer. The second is a proper school environment. And if you see the efforts that we are making, we are ensuring that that child can stay in school. We are ensuring the child has the material they require in school. And we are ensuring that there is a teacher in the school to guide that learner. And thirdly, which is the most critical, is a favorable community. Ladies and gentlemen, our children come from home to school and back home. So the environment in school needs to have a commensurate environment at home. And that is why one of the principles we have, which is parental engagement and empowerment, has raised a big hue and cry. But we are saying the parent must work with the child. Whether it is, the parent or the guardian, you need to work with the child. Because there's a reason why we take the children to school. If you don't know what the child is doing in school, you cannot support the child. We also expect that the community will play its role, because this child and parent come from a community. And that is why we introduced community service learning. It is simply that we learn in school and we practice in our normal environment. And so it will call upon us as Kenyans to be able to support this child. If a child needed to work in a farm and they don't have access to the farm, anybody in the community in the farm, with the farm, should be able to support that learning. I want to assure Kenyans that we are confident of the curriculum we have provided. And if we all pull together, we should see the success of our children.
It takes a village, that's what they say, right?
Indeed it does.
Okay. Coming to you, sir, Mr. Orlando, in 30 seconds, as you give your final remarks, please elaborate to the forum how exactly schools can be part of the program, such as newspaper in education and great places to school.
Okay, thank you. The first thing I would say is that by the representation I see in this room, I can see that the schools are actually partnering with media and other stakeholders to try and resolve the issues around the education sector. Remember, the Great Places to School Awards is actually a tri-partnership, actually not right, it's a partnership between several stakeholders, of which the Standard Media Group is one of them. Okay. So what we are providing is the visibility, what we are providing is the ability to rally people for the call to action. So I'm happy to say that the first element of our role is being fulfilled by just seeing how many people have turned up for these awards. The other thing I would like to say is that we also create the avenues and the platform for discourse. What is happening here today and right now is not just the awards. What you are witnessing is a discourse on how education in this country can be improved. And I think the role of media in terms of education, as in addition to what I said earlier, is being fulfilled. And the fact that this event is being beamed live, it means it's not just restricted to the people who are in the audience here. The rest of Kenya are actually watching and they're paying attention. And I'll not be surprised if something that has been said here today can elicit some follow-up action outside of this event. Okay. Finally, as a standard group, now to be a bit more specific, we do have a program called Newspapers in Education. And the aim of this is simple. We want to do several things. Provide a platform for children in school to be able to access reading material other than books. Two is that this platform comes with content. And this content enables them to be made aware of what is happening around them. And three is to enable the children to develop a reading culture. We all know that there's a big, can I call it pandemic, of declining readership in this country. A lot of people are not, or children are not putting time into their reading. So newspaper in education is supposed to promote that. And how do you get in? Every Tuesday, we try and distribute about 22 newspapers per school. If a school cannot afford, we are calling on sponsors. Please reach out to any standard group member of staff who's here. And if you want to sponsor a school, we'll be very glad to bring you on board. And eventually what we're trying to do is through newspapers, we are hoping to contribute in the literacy, the reading culture of the country. Okay. So that's how we are now participating at the very, I would say, individual level.
All right. Mr. Ochome, I'll allow you to have the last say in 30 seconds, please. Kindly give your final remarks as well as tell us how best can we realize this education dream as a country.
Number one, I think we have to have right attitude. Negative attitude brings negative energy into our workplaces and in whatever we are doing. Many of us would like to highlight negative issues that affect our schools and our students. I'm yet to hear positive things being highlighted. So I think once, as Kenyans, we have a positive attitude towards our systems, towards our education system, towards our teachers, we talk positive about our developments, then we will have scored very highly. Number two, I want to encourage those who are in private education with me to put up good infrastructure for their schools. I happen to have gone to Brazil on an education tour, and what we saw in one of the cities, which was a public institution in a place called Sobral,
yes, briefly,
was an excellent display of what good education is all about. So this I've been preaching to our people, not only in the private sector, but because I believe even as a government, when we put good facilities for our students, then we will be closing up on the gap of excellence or quality. A third thing that I would like to tell the audience is that Kenyans, we are very enterprising. We are very versatile people. And sometimes we should not demean ourselves by looking at ourselves and only talking about the negative things that happen in our systems. We need to highlight our strengths so that people out there can believe in us. I'm looking for a time when even the neighbors will be looking at Kenyan schools as a destination for their children. If Kenyans want to take their children to India, they take their children to Britain, why can't we have other countries bring their children to our country so that we can earn the much needed foreign exchange? But that cannot happen when we keep on highlighting negative things about our systems. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for your nuggets of wisdom, and a round of applause to our panelists. Well, thank you. I will hand you over back to a very able MC, Ian. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. Let's appreciate our panel with a round of applause. And also another round of applause for our lovely moderator for doing such a fantastic job. Please, let's appreciate her one more time. This is such a seasoned panel. I could just not get enough of it. And I was hoping that probably next time to the organizers, we can be able to get an opportunity to interact and engage such seasoned panelists more. And hopefully we can be able to get a breakout session and engage them more. But ladies and gentlemen, please, let's appreciate them one more time with a round of applause. Thank you. All right. At this particular point in time, I would like to call upon the Resource Mobilization and Partnership Manager at the Global Peace Foundation of Kenya. He is socially known as Vinny, but formerly known as Mr. Vincent Ayako. Please appreciate him as he comes to take the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Let's appreciate our able MC. And also let us appreciate all the key panelists that contributed to this eminent discussion today. And just allow me to recognize the presence of one of my mentors. I have to mention is Mike Mutungi. Please just pick up and wave. That is the man behind this man here. So it's called mentor and the mentee, and also the wife. Please just wave. And then also appreciate my other boss, Daniel Juma. Let him pigie makofi. How awesome is it that two of the CEOs that mentored you are in the same platform? And you worked for them. It was all for good, and all of them are here. So never burn bridges. Chinua Achebe says, never bite the finger that feeds you. And it's only a fool who points his tradition with this Literature students. It's only a fool who points his tradition with his left finger. And Reverend Kanis, we always appreciate the West African literature. Thank you very much. So for today, we are here because of education. And as I mentioned, that education is the greatest equalizer in the world. So assume all of us as students, will be fed by a fountain of knowledge. That's why the teachers play a very important role. So education is the greatest equalizer in the world, and education is the most powerful weapon that you can use to change the world. And that's why we are here. And the question that I want to ask before I invite the CEO is, what does education do to the world? And what does education do to us? We are here because of education, isn't it? So let's appreciate each and every one of us for the role we are playing in the education sector. So with that, allow me to invite my mentor, Honorable Daniel Juma, the CEO I Choose Life Africa. Immediately I left college, he's the first person who gave me the job. And guess what? I worked for him for 2 years, and the late Honorable MP Ken Okoth took me to be his PA. Let's appreciate Daniel Juma. So karibu Daniel, so that you can be able to make your remarks. I appreciate.
Thank you. Vincent is a very dynamic guy. Okay. The Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Education, the Honorable Ezekiel Machogu, Mr. Orlando Liomu, who is the CEO and MD of the Standard Media Group, Reverend Kanis Chineyaka Enyaka, who is the International Program Director of the Global Peace Foundation. He's visiting Kenya for the first time. Actually, I was with him in Mombasa yesterday during the MP's induction workshop, and we spoke to the members of parliament, and he had a good time in Mombasa. Welcome, sir. Mr. Charles Ochome, my friend, the chairman of the Kenya Private Schools Association, all the other education stakeholders present here today, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Global Peace Foundation, Kenya, I am delighted to welcome you to this third edition of the annual Great Places to School Awards Gala, where all stakeholders in education gather to celebrate our great schools and also share best practices and ideas on how to make our schools be the safe spaces where our children can be transitioned from childhood to responsible adulthood. I take this opportunity to thank our partners, and especially the Standard Media Group, the Kenya Private Schools Association, the Center for Mathematics, others known as Semaster, and all the other partners who have worked with us when we started this journey in 2019. I also recognize our new partners, such as UNICAF. They provide scholarships. Everyone who is here who wants scholarships to go and study in the UK, but study here, UNICAF is offering all that, and they're our partners. Plan International, Rio Gracious Magero, Al Hair Foundation, Mali Therapy Center for Children with Autism, this gracious lady here. And you talk about equity and education, where some of our children, they have, for example, autism or dyslexia. How can you ensure that there is equity in our education? And she's doing a marvelous job. We look forward to partnering with you. Moringa School, Mr. Shah, I appreciate you. And Mine Nime Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, we launched this program to recognize and celebrate primary and secondary schools whose learning environment and culture contribute to the holistic development of our students. This exercise is hinged on the 7 national goals of education, which include, number 1, fostering nationalism, patriotism and promoting national unity. Number 2, promoting social, economic, technological, and industrial needs for national development. Number 3, promoting individual development and self-fulfillment. Number 4, promoting sound moral and religious values in our students, in our youth. 5, promoting social equality and responsibility. Number 6, promoting respect for and development of Kenya's rich and varied cultures. Number 7, promoting international consciousness and foster a positive attitude towards other nations. And lastly, promoting positive attitudes towards good health and environmental protection. As a result, and as promised during the last awards, and from this year onwards, we revised the categories to 11 to include school safety, health and sanitation, career guidance, transformative technology and digital skills, academic excellence and extracurricular activities. Others are values, skills and character, global competence, scholarships and CSR, climate action, equity and inclusion, and moral and innovative school leadership. This is where the principals, the teachers come in, the role of the teachers. Very, very important in education. These awards, ladies and gentlemen, have encouraged both private and public schools to work hard to improve the overall quality of their schools and to be able to attract students from Kenya. And you heard Mr. Charles Ochome say that we need to promote Kenya as a destination for education. So these awards have been able to encourage our schools to be able to work hard and to attract students from Kenya and other parts of the world. Through this exercise, we are demonstrating to parents from Kenya and other countries that Kenya is a hotbed of quality education and that there is completely no need to take our children to study abroad. We have the best schools in this country. Our system of education is one of the best. Our graduates are some of the best, the most respected graduates in the region. If you go to countries like Tanzania, you'll find Kenyans working there because we are offering quality education and we need to be proud. So let's clap for our system of education. To this end, let me congratulate the Ministry of Education, for putting more efforts to roll out the CBC curriculum, and also the Kenya Private Schools Association for investing your resources in education. I take this opportunity to congratulate all the schools who have participated in this program, those who will win in various categories today, and even those who will not win this year. Now, for those who will not win this year, I am pretty sure that you will win in the subsequent categories. So, ladies and gentlemen, I really want to appreciate the CS, for education. This is the first time, I'm meeting him, and I've been seeing him in the media. A very humble man, and Mr. CS, I can assure you that in this audience today, we have stakeholders in education, private schools, investors in education, and your presence here today will encourage these stakeholders to support you, to work with you, so that whatever system of education, the CBC and any other programs, the Kenya Kwanza plan that you want to implement, these people in this audience here will work with you, will support you, so that the Kenya Kwanza plan can be able to succeed. Please clap for this minister. Yeah. So, and as I end my remarks, I want to appreciate our partners, and I want to call upon next, my friend, who has really worked with us in this journey, the CEO of the Standard Media Group, Mr. Orlando Liomo. When we spoke to him about this, how can you recognize our schools? Rather than, the historical ranking has been the exams. When exams are announced, that's when you see people recognizing schools. But there are schools who are doing great things. There are schools who are promoting values, nurturing character, sports, talent. That's why we came up with all these variables. Climate action. There are teachers. I've met teachers who are planting trees in their schools, planting grass. This country, Kenya, is the country of teacher Thabiti. He went to Dubai and he was nominated as the best teacher. Why are we not recognizing these people here in Kenya? Why do we wait for them to be recognized outside there? That's why we came up with this idea to recognize great schools, so that we are able to inspire you, even those who have not invested in education, that education is the best place to invest in. Because when you invest in education, you're investing in the people. Investing in the people is better than investing in infrastructure. Because when you invest in the people, they will build the infrastructure. So thank you so much. Thank you for those who came here today. We look forward to an engaging afternoon. Next, I want to call upon Mr. Orlando Liomo to come and make his remarks. And then after that, I'll invite Reverend Father Kaniz Enyaka, who is visiting us from the US, to follow, and then invite the CS for education. So, Mr. Orlando, the floor is yours.
Before I get into my salutations, as I was seated there listening to a good friend, Daniel, I was just thinking, these ceilings need to be a bit higher. How many of you got that sense? For a moment, I thought he would. But luckily just had a few inches left, but such is nature. Thank you, Daniel. Honorable Ezekiel Machogu, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Education, all other invited guests, and allow me to associate myself with the protocol established by Daniel. The Standard Group is honored and pleased to be the media partner. This is the third edition of the Great Places to School. When we started this initiative, and I remember I was probably still in my early years as the CEO of the group, and someone came and said, there's this idea on the table, and this team is looking for a media partner. And normally partnerships, we have to ask ourselves, so what are the objectives? Where are we going with this? What's in it for everyone? And what I can say is that ever since, there are no regrets. And where maybe we've fallen short, only lessons that we've picked along to try and make this Great Places to School award, not just an award ceremony, but a platform which can be used to improve the quality of education in our country. A lot of times, and it's been said here by many, schools were predominantly focused on the whole idea of how many A's, how many B's, how many C's. And that became the culture for a long time in our country. Actually, I was both fortunate and unfortunate to have done my schooling during that period. And it came with joy for those who the schools performed well, for those students who were ranked very highly, and despair and sometimes disappointment for those who didn't perform equally as well. And this analogy has been used before, where they say if we could measure all animals by how well they could swim, then the fish would be the outright winner. But if you decided to measure the same animals by how well they could climb a tree, then probably the monkey would become the winner. And I think our education over time had put all sorts of skills and talents and capabilities and decided that, okay, what is it? Is it climbing trees? Is it swimming? And therefore you find that those who are left outside those parameters were always considered failures. And I think that's the sad thing about an education system that doesn't empower people for who they are. I don't think anyone in life is really a failure, because to measure one against the other is competition, true. But to measure one against the other does not mean one is necessarily the better version or the better species compared to the other. We've seen people who didn't get A's in class go ahead, start businesses and employ those who get A's. We've seen a lot of A students, first-class honor students, who cannot hold a conversation, who cannot even support their own cause in an interview, right? And I think the Great Places to School initiative, what it seeks to address, what it's trying to bring to the table, is so noble, and that's why the Standard Media Group can only continue supporting it and associating ourselves with it. So we believe that a lot has to be done. And in Kenya we have this statement that says serikali saidia, right? Everything, and now that the Honorable CS is here, chances are maybe there are guys who are waiting to make a beeline for him after the event with small notes and, when I see there's this problem here and there. But whereas the government is playing its role, it's important that everyone else asks themselves, and in the words of, J.F. Kennedy, the President of America, the former President of America, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. If we are to follow the same philosophy, if we need to have better education in Kenya, if we need to have better standards in Kenya, then let's not be asking what the government can do for us. Let's not be focusing on serikali's idea, but let's all rally together and say, how can we help the government to make this space better? In the first edition of the Great Places to School Awards, we saw a predominantly big population of private schools. I don't know, for those who've been here, you'll remember that. In the second edition, and this is where people's memories are challenged, and for those who struggle, I understand omega-3 is good. We saw public schools starting to come on board. And if I'm not wrong, there's a school that, was it from Baringo or somewhere in Pokot, that actually won an award, and they came all the way to Nairobi. And I believe that event was at Safari Park. And that to me was a testament of why this is becoming the kind of platform we need. And I think going forward in the next few years, I want to look at a situation where we'll say the conversations that we had a couple of years, a few people, the vision and the dream that was started by Daniel Juma and his colleagues at Global Peace Foundation, that was accepted readily by the Kenya Private Schools Association, that was accepted by all the other stakeholders, that came to this platform, will address all these problems we keep seeing. You know, there are many. There's inadequate learning and teaching materials. Infrastructure for learning. We've seen students learn under trees. Shortage of teachers. I'm happy to hear Ms. Martha was talking about, you know, the government has employed 30,000 extra teachers. And not only have they been employed, but they are being retooled so that they can be able to deliver the right training for our students in this in the new curriculum and in the new system. The lack of ICT skills. On this one, please allow me to just make one comment. You know, when the pandemic hit us, the COVID-19 pandemic hit us, we had just completed quite a number of beautiful infrastructure projects. You know, the expressway was coming along nicely. We had a lot of roads working. Then the government said, okay, a cessation of movement, work from home. And all of a sudden, the roads became the most useless investment when you are working from home, because the most commute people are doing was from bedroom to living room, back to bedroom, and anywhere else around your compound, because at some point even your neighbors didn't want to see you at your own door. You know, it was considered very dangerous to mingle. But that talks about the importance of ICT infrastructure. I think if we are going to have a futuristic society, one that is digitally led, then it's not just about the skill sets in ICT, it's also about the infrastructure. And if our schools have to train the right kind of ICT skills, I believe then there has to be conversation around, are we providing the infrastructure that enables our schools, wherever they are, to train the students appropriately in ICT skills. People underestimate the power of ICT, but ICT is not a place where you write on the chalkboard or on the whiteboard and students take notes and then you say you have ICT skilled students. No, ICT is a very practical kind of skill. If you do not interact with the hardware, if you don't interact with the software, there's no way you can claim that your child will become good in that space. So we need to work together and ask ourselves, what kind of partnerships, what kind of solutions do we bring on board so that in future, and I know the categories have been expanded gradually, maybe in future we'll bring on board some of these futuristic areas of focus and make them part of the awards or awarding criteria. Because again, anything that is related to education, in my opinion, has to evolve with society. It has to evolve with where the world is heading. If we started the awards focusing on values, focusing on extracurricular, focusing on those, and in the next 3-4 years we realize that there's a new aspect that needs to be paid attention to, then for the judges, for the coordinators of this event, it will be important to say that the awards should also evolve. So then the schools also are almost drawn into a space where they pay attention to what the students need to be equipped with for the future. For ICT to work, internet is part and parcel. You know, it's just like a toothbrush and toothpaste. One without the other is just a commodity. And for me, I believe that access to good broadband is important. So even as we discuss the issues we are discussing here today, and I know we are focusing on education, why am I mentioning these things? I feel that education today is not about the laws or theory of relativity. Education today is not about mass times, you know, speed times, all those things. Those principles will never change. If you drop an apple from this height, this is the acceleration, this is gravity, how long will it take it to reach the ground? That will never change. But as that remains static, the world we live in is changing, right? The solutions we need to to provide are becoming more complex. And therefore, the conversation we are having around the education of our children has to also keep evolving. As I said, I'm one of those who are lucky and unlucky to go through that system. And when I look back, as a student who was wired to want to appear in the newspaper, you know, those days all you did was went to bed, studied hard before that, prayed before you shut your eyes, and you tell God, oh God, please help me, I want to appear in that newspaper. And when you did appear in that newspaper, you felt you had conquered the world. What if that prayer was, oh God, help me to perform well in my exams because I want to solve the world's problems? The mindset changes. I thank God that despite the fact I went through a system that focused me on A, B, or C is a bad grade, somewhere along the line I was able to get into a space where I learned that it's more than just the grades. A lot of students don't get that break. And I think for me, these awards, let's use them as a platform to make sure that every child, whether it's private sector, whether it's public sector, when they are going to bed and they are praying, they should not be praying to be the top of their class because that's the best thing. No, they should be praying to become better people in the future so that they can become top of the world in terms of providing solutions. It will be good to see an Elon Musk kind of person, the innovative side of him, come from Kenya. It will be good. But when you listen to people like Elon Musk, when you watch his documentary, then you realize part of his success factor is not conforming to the norms. Part of his success factor is that he dared to challenge status quo. And that's why he got where he did. But it's important to always remind our kids also, failure is part and parcel of success. We are trying to make it look like success is the only form of recognizable achievement in everyone's life. I think our children have to be prepared that failure is part and parcel of success. Let's not create a culture where when somebody fails, then that's the end of their life. Anyone in this room who has made something, anyone in this room who has succeeded, if you've not failed, then you still haven't succeeded. And if you have failed, then let's help our kids learn that even as we say Great Places to School Awards is about those who have done best, who have done whatever. For those who haven't, it's an opportunity to say, how do we become better and beat the winners of today? I would like to leave my comments there. Thank you very much. And to those who will be winning tonight, congratulations. Keep improving. To those who may not win or who will not win, don't despair. Don't see the judges behind the tent. We don't like canvassing, but don't despair. Go back, improve on those criteria that have been put there, and hopefully next year when we meet here, we will see a new crop of schools, a new crop of names being mentioned as winners. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic evening.
You know, when I was doing my doctoral program at Howard University, I was asked to take 2 foreign languages, 1 Africa, 1 Europe. I decided to go for Swahili. So be careful what you say around me. The Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Education, Honorable Ezekiel Machigo, the Principal Secretary, Mr. Orlando Lemo, CEO and Managing Director, Standard Group PLC, the staff of the Global Peace Foundation, Kenya, led by Daniel Juma, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I respectfully ask to stand on the existing protocols. My name is Kenneth Chinyaka Enyaka. I serve as the International Program Development Specialist and the African Regional Representative at the Global Peace Foundation headquarters in Washington, D.C. I'm also a Catholic priest. I bring you greetings from the International President of the Global Peace Foundation and the entire family of this noble organization. It is my distinct honor and privilege today to speak to you at this third edition of the annual Great Places to School Award under the theme, Transforming Education for the Future. Organized by the Global Peace Foundation Kenya, Standard Group PLC, Kenya Private Schools Association, Opinion Track Limited, Center for Mathematics, Science and Technology, and other stakeholders. I just arrived from Mombasa, where I spoke at the induction workshop for the newly elected members of the 13th Parliament. We shared ideas about national integration and cohesion. And let me say this, Kenya has shown Africa a path to go. Thank you for a peaceful election that did not take lives. We don't have to kill ourselves for any reason. I want to thank you for keeping it quiet and cool. We don't need to destroy the lives of our young people because of election. African nations must learn this lesson. Thank you very much. Let me begin by congratulating again Honorable Ezekiel Machugo on your appointment as the new Cabinet Secretary for Education. May we put our hands together for him. I also salute all the schools who have participated in this innovative exercise since it was launched in 2019. I also congratulate all the partners who have come together to establish this great exercise. You know, listening to the panelists today, we appreciate the fact that we cannot just use grades to assess human beings. Education is about human beings. It's not just about grades. And this platform is offering a great opportunity to look at things in a very holistic manner. May I share a few words about the Global Peace Foundation with you? This is an international, non-sectarian, non-partisan, non-profit organization that promotes an innovative, values-based approach to peace building, guided by the vision of one family under God. Our approach at the Global Peace Foundation emphasizes universal principles and shared values as the basis to address conflicts, promote equitable and sustainable development, and engage all members of the human family as necessary and valuable contributors to building the culture of peace and life. Founded in 2009, this organization has its international office in Washington, D.C., and we operate in more than 20 countries around the world. We engage and organize a global network of public and private sector partners who develop community, national, and regional peace building models as the foundation for ethical and cohesive societies. To achieve this, the Global Peace Foundation convenes and implements development projects and conferences on grassroots peace building, education, entrepreneurship, and youth development. In Kenya, the Global Peace Foundation, led by Daniel Juma, has been focusing on education as a tool for peace building. In the peace building community, we have what is called peace education, and education for peace. This is the main focus of the Global Peace Foundation Kenya. And this organization in Kenya has developed interesting partnership with the Ministry of Education and other stakeholders to promote equality and inclusive education in Kenya, focusing on addressing educational outcomes such as learning, transition, and sustainability. For more than a decade, the Global Peace Foundation has been engaging educators and stakeholders to integrate ethics and the 21st century workforce skills into public secondary schools. Education can create peaceful societies by strengthening the teaching and understanding of shared knowledge, values, and attitudes, enabling individuals to live together in diverse communities. This is why the Great Places to School came in handy as a tool to improve the quality of education by subjecting schools to a regular confirming of competence as Great Places to School. This is done through a rigorous process that identifies and rates schools whose overall culture contributes to the development of a holistic student, where parents can utilize this scientific research-based report card when they are choosing a school for their children, as they make comparisons much easier. To all the schools nominated and represented here today, I wish you all the great and best luck in life. And as you pick this award, I urge you to be the safe spaces for all our children, especially as the new school calendar has just kicked off. And let me leave you with these words of Pope Paul VI. When he talked about development, Paul VI said, through development, which is also called integral development, is the development of the person and the whole person. Development of the person and the whole person. What does it mean? It's not just intellectual development. The human person has a sociological aspect, an economic aspect, a psychological aspect. If you are developing the person, it must be the whole person, not just a part of the individual. And this is what Great Places to School invite us to appreciate. What is true development? It's not about structures. Structures don't build themselves. Human beings put structures together. When we take care of the development of the person through holistic education, we are developing the community. We are developing the country. It is also called the ethics of encounter. Education should encounter the person as an individual. God bless you. May I now invite Honorable Secretary Ezekiel Machuga. Please put your hands together for him.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Father Kani Senyaka, the International Program Development Specialist, our friend Juma Daniel Omondi, the Executive Director, Global Peace Foundation, my friend, the CEO of Standard Media Group, the directors from my ministry who are here, my friend, the director and the chairman of Private Schools Association, award recipients who are here, ladies and gentlemen, good